Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring Chitral, an absolutely breathtaking region in the Hindu Kush Mountains that is facing a devastating, recurring threat: massive floods. To really get why the stakes are so incredibly high here, you gotta picture just how stunning this place is. Tucked away in the snow-capped peaks of northern Pakistan, it's literally where three major mountain ranges crash together. It's got these deep, isolated valleys, crystal-clear rivers, and lush green terraces. Seriously, for generations, it's been a sanctuary for incredible biodiversity and unique cultures. But underneath all that cinematic beauty, there is an urgent growing threat that returns to ravage the landscape almost every single year, turning this vital ecosystem into ground zero for climate-driven disasters.
So that brings us to the big question. Why does a mountain paradise suddenly become a deadly trap? Well, for centuries, communities here lived in total harmony with nature. They built these intricate irrigation channels to gently guide the slow summer meltwater from the high-altitude glaciers right down to their farms. The rivers were literally their lifeblood. But lately, those exact same rivers are morphing into forces of absolute devastation. The predictable, gentle flow of water has been replaced by sudden, violent torrents that can just swallow entire roads and wipe out centuries-old infrastructure in the blink of an eye.
Section 1, the anatomy of disaster, unpacking the causes. Let's look at the compounding global and local causes driving this perfect storm.
Cause number one, climate change and rapidly melting glaciers. Look, rising global temperatures are causing these glaciers to melt way faster than ever before. Scientists actually call the Hindu Kush region the third pole, because outside of the actual polar regions, it holds the most ice on Earth. But as the planet heats up, these massive, ancient ice reserves are shrinking at a staggering pace. We're talking billions of tons of ice just rapidly melting away. All that extra water gets forced directly into the high mountain river systems all at once. So even before a single drop of rain falls from the sky, the baseline water levels are already dangerously high.
And this rapid melting creates something called glacial lake outburst floods, or GLFs. As those glaciers recede, the meltwater doesn't just quietly flow away. It pools up. It forms these massive lakes trapped behind natural dams made of shifting ice, loose rock, and dirt, which are known as moraines. Now, the thing is, these natural dams were never designed to hold back millions of cubic meters of water. When they inevitably break under all that immense pressure, millions of liters of water are violently released in literal minutes. It acts like a giant liquid bulldozer, churning up massive boulders and thick mud, destroying absolutely everything in its path as it rockets down the valley. Then we have unpredictable, extreme rainfall. Short, intense storms that just completely overwhelm the natural drainage systems. Climate change isn't just making things warmer. It's making weather incredibly erratic. Historically, Chitral didn't really get those heavy monsoon rains you'd see in the lower plains. But now, shifting weather patterns are pushing intense storms higher up into the mountains. A whole month's worth of rain can just dump out in a couple of hours. And the narrow, steep, rocky ravines up there, they simply don't have the capacity to handle that kind of massive volume, forcing the water to violently spill over the banks. Cause 4 is deforestation, which means losing our natural shields against floods. This is where local human action really speeds up a global climate problem. Because of things like illegal logging, expanding farmland, and just a desperate need for winter fuel, huge swaths of the mountain forests have been cleared. Think of healthy, dense forests as Chitral's natural armor. When trees are cut down, we lose this incredible sponge-like root network. Without those deep roots to absorb heavy rainfall or anchor the loose mountain dirt, the stage is perfectly set for disaster. And here is the lethal domino effect of that soil erosion. First, the protective trees are cut down, so the roots no longer hold the earth together. Then heavy rain hits that loose, unanchored dirt and triggers massive landslides of mud and rock. All that sliding debris crashes into the valleys, temporarily blocking the rivers to form impromptu mud dams. The water builds up furiously behind this blockage until it just collapses under the unbearable pressure, blasting a massive flash flood downstream with zero warning. Section 2, the human cost, beyond the physical destruction. We really need to understand that this isn't just about water and mud. It's a direct attack on the safety, livelihoods, and the very fabric of the Chitrali people. The toll is just staggering every single time the waters rise. Imagine waking up to find the home your family has lived in for generations completely swept away into a muddy ravine. Farmers literally stand by and watch helplessly as their crops and livestock, their entire livelihood, are just erased in an instant. Bridges collapse, roads wash away, and suddenly schools are totally inaccessible for months. Worst of all, local hospitals get completely cut off, leaving stranded villagers without any access to emergency medical care right when they need it most. It leaves deep economic and emotional scars that can take decades to heal. Section 3, Blueprints for Resilience, Turning Tragedy into Action. Let's shift gears to actionable solutions. Because hey, while we can't stop all floods from happening, forward-thinking planning can absolutely reduce their impact. The clearest antidote to the destruction caused by bare slopes? Aggressive, community-led reforestation. Replanting millions of native trees directly reverses the damage. It stabilizes the soil and is honestly the most effective natural defense system money can buy. By organizing local volunteers to plant trees across these stripped areas, communities are restoring the Earth's natural sponge. Those new roots dig deep, acting as vital anchors for the topsoil. It's a long-term play, sure, but a thriving forest is quite simply nature's best flood wall, preventing the landslides that block the rivers in the first place. Technology is also giving us a massive edge here. Scientists are now deploying high-tech drones to track microscopic shifts in the ice patterns. Plus, they're dropping advanced acoustic sensors and water pressure gauges directly into those glacial lakes. These early warning systems beam real-time data straight down to local authorities. So instead of having just a few minutes of warning before a glacial lake bursts, communities now have hours to safely evacuate. It's a total game changer. Of course, we also have to focus heavily on physical resilience, designing flood-resistant roads, bridges, and river embankments for the future. We can't just rebuild the exact same structures the exact same way. That's just a recipe for repeat failure. Today, engineers are designing highly fortified suspension bridges anchored deeply into solid bedrock, wider spans to let massive debris pass right underneath, and heavy wire cages filled with rock lining the most vulnerable curves of the rivers. But ultimately, all the high-tech sensors and reinforced bridges in the world don't mean much if the people on the ground aren't empowered. Prepared communities bounce back faster. Running regular emergency drills, setting up grassroots educational programs about flood risks, and using mobile phone alert systems literally saves lives. Even in super remote areas, a simple instant text message blast can trigger a synchronized community evacuation the second an alarm sounds. I mean, a siren only works if you know exactly where to go when you hear it, right? Section 4. The choice is ours, heeding nature's warning. Chitral is on the absolute front line of global climate change, and these events are severe warnings demanding sustainable development. We really need to internalize this core message. Protect forests, protect glaciers, protect Chitral. Protecting the environment is, at its core, about protecting the people living in it. These devastating floods aren't just random unlucky events. They are massive, unavoidable warnings that demand action. But through environmental protection, forward-thinking engineering, and amazing community resilience, the people of Chitral can absolutely safeguard their incredible home against the rising tides of a changing climate. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. Will we protect nature today or face greater disasters tomorrow? You know, Chitral is really a microcosm for the entire globe. The lessons learned in these remote mountain valleys, the dangers of ignoring ecological balance, and the power of community resilience apply to cities and plains everywhere. The solutions, from planting trees to installing smart sensors, are right there, waiting to be embraced. It's a stark choice, but it's one we all have the power to make. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring how we can all help build a more resilient world.